Okay, we will go ahead and get started. I will tell you right now, I'm not a podium person, so I'm going to try to see if we can get that lavalier mic working so I can walk around the room, but not that I'm a shy person or have a soft voice either, so I'll probably just do that anyway. But I want to thank you all for coming here today. We've got a few unconventional things going on. Number one, we kind of asked to have the room set up in rounders instead of the typical tables, so that the people that are looking here might have to crick your neck for just the beginning of the session, but then it will get better after that. Because the goal of this session is actually to have a lot of dialogue and personal interaction with your peers on a topic that's meaningful to you. The customer experience is such a broad topic, and I've spoken about that at security conferences before. Got people like Brandon, who I think this is the 5th time he's come to one of my sessions, and that guy's about to shoot himself if he sees like a certain slide one more time. But then there's probably some of you that I've never met before. So the goal today was to try to put together a work session where you can really pick what's going to be the most meaningful for you. And the first test was, did anybody find the culture table? There is no culture in this room, as I said earlier. There is not a culture table. We ended up kind of moving that content into sort of the square one table. But did everybody get one of these that gives you a little bit of information about where to sit? Just really quickly, square one is a great place to start if you feel like you're new to this idea of the customer experience. The insight table is another great place to start if you feel that way. And even the journey table would be fine. The performance table is definitely for sort of the more sophisticated. Thank you, that's working. Sorry, I see what you're saying. Hello? Ooh, yeah, that works. Hello? Is that too loud? Is that okay? Because I'm not really sure what to do if it's too loud, frankly. All right, it's going to be nice and pretty. Okay, and so the last table, the tables that say performance, those are the ones for kind of the more sophisticated practitioners, if you will, but basically that's designed for people who are already using NPS, or the Net Promoter Score. How many people in this room are using NPS at your company? Okay, good. We've got a few. And so that's a good place to kind of compare notes with your peers to focus on that topic. Or if you are thinking very seriously about starting with NPS, that wouldn't be a bad place to go either. You'll hear from some folks who are already using it. Just wouldn't want people to get sort of lost in the shuffle there. Exactly. We'll be going over that here. We'll be going over that here. So I had two choices, which was kind of go over everything first and have you pick your tables, or kind of pick your tables on the way in and see if that worked. So I was trying to go for minimal shuffling. But the reality is we're going to kind of go through everything. And if people want to change their table, that's absolutely fine. And I've got some extra copies of everything. There are kind of different worksheets and exercises, if you will, given the different topics. So if there are more people that want to do one group or another, we can totally make those kinds of adjustments as we go. Sound good? Sound fair? All right. Okay, so I'm going to try not to stand up there any more than I have to. So what we'll accomplish today, first of all, we'll do a quick overview of the customer experience so that we are all kind of on the same page in terms of what we're talking about, what the customer experience means, and why it's important today. Kind of interwoven into that as we go through that, we'll kind of hit on what these different work session topics are that we're addressing today. Then we'll break off into workshops, and that'll really be the bulk of the day. I'll kind of be roving around if there's some way that I can be of help to you guys as you do that. But really spending time, there's some kind of independent work that can be done. The NPS group in particular is kind of set up as primarily a dialogue with a lot of thought starter questions to kind of compare notes with your peers on that. The other ones are more set up to do some kind of independent work and then kind of compare notes. And you can partner up with the person you're sitting beside, or you can talk as a group. It's really kind of up to you. But I am going to ask everybody at this point, if you could, to just select whoever's the most unwitting person, whoever everybody points to first, a table leader for your table. Whoever pulls out their hand and points first. Everybody got one? Okay. All right, I thought that would get everybody going. So then once we've done that, we'll do a little bit of group share, and then we've got kind of a final action plan where you can kind of bring it all together. Because the goal of this is to be able for you to each bring something back to your company that is relevant to you, that you personally, regardless of your position, feel that you can have an influence and make a change. So this isn't just to sit back and listen. This is very much a, what can I do to help my company provide a better experience for our customers? And even if you leave with just one or two small things that you didn't come in with, that would be great. Is everybody good with that goal? Awesome. All right, then we'll just get going. In terms of the customer experience, what does that mean? The definition that we use at LightSwitch is my company, and we consult companies on the customer experience, is just simply that it's the sum of every interaction a company has with its customers. A lot of times people will say, well, what's the difference between customer experience and customer service? But customer service is generally what you're doing with customers when they come to you with a problem. But the customer experience is really everything that a customer takes in about you, right? I mean, they could be reading about you on social media. That's part of their experience. They could be having a hard time reading their bill or paying their bill or changing their automated, payment plan or whatever it might be. Any interaction that they have with you whatsoever is part of that experience that they're having with you as a company. And so what tends to happen is we might focus a lot on customer service and those interactions that we're highly aware of, but not always necessarily focus as much on some of the more passive, if you will, those experiences that customers are out there having that you're not even really thinking about. So we want to make sure, and some of the exercises today will help us to focus on all of those. Why is this so important today? Things have really gone almost full circle if you think about it. Back before there was mass marketing and really much technology, word of mouth was how everything got around, right? And that's when brands kind of started. People were branding, and that was their reputation. And what's happened over the years is there's been a lot of push marketing, right? Sophisticated marketing and people saying, this is what I want to stand for. I'm going to put that out on the Super Bowl. Everybody's going to listen to it and think it's amazing and buy my products. But what's happened since then with the advent of social media is that, whereas before people would only tell a few of their friends about the experiences they had, now they're telling everyone. Their opinions are everywhere, right? I mean, how many people here have been influenced in some way by a review that somebody you don't know has posted online about anything, right? Is there anybody who hasn't been, right? I mean, it's just a huge source of influence. 92% of consumers trust recommendations from their friends and family above all else, which I think is particularly pertinent to this industry where referrals are such a great source of sales. But online reviews are a number 2, okay? So both of these, really, whether it's peer-to-peer or it's family and friends, both of these are completely surpassing advertising and almost making advertising in many ways irrelevant. Here's kind of an example of looking at the customer experience in kind of a pictorial way. And we just pulled the residential security customer because it's just a little bit easier to kind of follow since we're all consumers. But if you think about, here's where a customer, a prospect learns about your company. They kind of go through an awareness phase, right? Then there's something that triggers them to want a security system or change a security system to you. Then they go through the research and consideration process, they purchase, they go through installation, ownership, service, and all the interactions that they're having with you there. And then hopefully you're engaging them in such a way that not only are they going to auto-renew, but they're going to actually engage with you, be loyal, and recommend people. That would be the goal. And so we'll kind of use this visual a bit as we do our various work sessions today. There we go. Here, for example, are just a few of the things that happen in the typical residential security customer experience. And if you notice, the ones that I put up here tend to be negative. And this isn't even if you're doing anything wrong. There are a lot of inherent negatives in our business. So starting with, a lot of the advertising is fear-based, right? And then a trigger that might have you buy a system could be a burglary on your street. Not a pleasant experience. Maybe you're feeling insecure because your spouse is out of town. Even when you go through the research and consideration process, it's tough. I mean, there is not a lot of great information online to help consumers sift through You know, am I going wireless? Am I going cellular? It's very confusing to people who aren't in our industry. Then they sign the contract, which who knows how long that is and how well they understand that. And then they go through and look at all these different experiences that happen, from your system beeping at you in the middle of the night to having alarms and false alarms and all kinds of experiences that, again, even if the system's doing what it should be doing and even if you're doing what you should be doing, there are still lots of negative experiences just inherently wrapped up in our business. So how do we make that more positive is the question. At LightSwitch, we tend to look at the customer experience in kind of 5 different dimensions, and the square one exercise will deal with this in more detail. But we look at people, products and services, so your entire product and services offering, purpose, process, and perspective. What we'll focus on a lot today are the perspective, really getting that insight, and NPS is part of that. But even if you're not in the NPS group, there's the other insight table that focuses on that. Square one's going to kind of look at all of these. And then the process is really kind of the journey. It's looking at that journey map and saying, how can we improve our process and our experience with customers? The one thing I will plug for you guys, how many folks have registered for Roy Spence's lunch today? Anybody? If you haven't and you're able to go, I would highly recommend it. He will do purpose like nobody can do purpose. He's kind of the father of purpose-built branding. So he will be a riveting speaker. Okay, so getting down to some of the actual work session exercises. So at the square one tables, what you'll do is we have kind of a one-page, what we call our CX quotient, CX standing for customer experience. And it just kind of walks you through very simply kind of people, process, you know, all the 5 Ps, and asks you just a series of questions about your company, your perception of your own company, and how you fare on those, okay? Then from there, there's kind of a self-assessment that asks you, what were the strengths? What were the weaknesses? What did you get out of that CX quotient? You know, how did you do? What should you work on? And then pulling that together to discuss at your table, or even just pick out a buddy system if you want to do that within your table to kind of compare notes and talk. So that's square one. Customer insight. So we've got a couple of tables that are really built around customer insight. And that's just the whole idea of knowing your customers better, understanding how they feel about you, understanding how you're going to make the experience better for them, just really making sure that you're closer than arm's length to what's really going on in here with your customers. Some of the different, this is going to build, I'm just going to build it very quickly. Some of the different opportunities to get feedback from your customer. Again, we can kind of use the same kind of customer experience journey to think about the different times that you might be able to get in touch with them. Now, you may not want to do all these, or certainly you don't want to do all customers at all these points. People would be inundated. But you probably want to have some kind of feedback mechanism, no matter how formal or informal it is. You can be getting feedback from your folks on the front lines, which is something that we'll talk about today. That's also a very important way to get feedback. But any direct customer feedback that you can get around these points is great, because again, we might tend to focus on the installation or maybe service visits. There are definitely some of the ones that are high in our mind, but keeping in mind, like, what's going on when, you know, they have an interaction with the monitoring center and they had a false alarm? How do they feel about that? Because that may be happening, right? And do they feel like they're treated well? Do they feel like people are looking out for them? So that's something that I don't see people survey too much. And again, it doesn't have to be formal. It doesn't have to be every month. But, you know, what can we do to make sure that we're kind of understanding from the customer's perspective what's going on at all these points? Okay. So one of the things I always love to ask is, you know, do you think you're good? Because there was a big study that was done that said that 80% of company leaders felt that they do provide a spectacular customer experience to their customers. And the reality is just 8% of those same companies' customers agreed with that statement. Now, I know our industry is completely different, and all of our customers are hugely satisfied. But it is kind of a wake-up call, right? That many people can be saying, we're doing a good job. And I think the reason that you see this disparity is because most of us are trying to do the right thing for the customer. In fact, most bad customer experiences aren't because somebody's, giving them the finger. It's because just there are breakdowns, unanticipated, unexpected, unintended consequences of some process that's broken upstream is happening, and there's a bad customer experience, right? None of us are planning for that. So we think we're doing a good job, but the better that we can be at getting the real answer and finding really where our customers' heads are at, the better we can improve and make sure that we get their perspective where ours is. I guess first ours where theirs is, and then ultimately theirs where we want to be. So you asked what's the Net Promoter Score, and that's a great question. I never start mumbling about NPS before we start talking about it normally, but the power of promoters. Think about a brand that you're really passionate about, that you're personally really passionate about. Have you told any of your friends or family about it? Have you encouraged someone else to buy something that you've bought just on the basis of your recommendation? How many people have done that? Pretty persuasive group. That is the power of a promoter right there. And that goes well beyond being satisfied, right? There's being satisfied, and then there's being loyal. And we tend to think, well, I've got a low attrition rate, so I've got loyal customers. But we also have auto-renewal contracts, and we make it easy for people to forget to stop doing business with us. So what is a great thing, what is a true litmus test of how customers are really feeling about you is, will they promote you, right? Because if they're going to recommend you to their dearest friends and family, that's on them, right? That's their word. You better be doing a great job. So that's kind of the holy grail. And that's what the Net Promoter Score is all about, is it's about trying to find out what percentage of your customers are actually promoters. If they were asked about you, they would be glowing, right? What percentage are detractors that if asked about you, or even if not asked about you, are running around saying negative things, right? And then there's kind of those in the middle that maybe are a little bit on the fence, but that's what the Net Promoter Score helps to measure. And this is what they call the golden question. Some folks from Bain came up with this, looking at a whole lot of different questions and how can we find a research question that does a good job of predicting behavior. That was their entire goal, is we want to have some sort of research question that when we know the answers, we have an idea how our customers are going to act, right? And this is the question that most highly correlated with actions. And a lot of companies use it, and we'll talk about a couple of them in a moment, but it is highly correlated with behaviors. So the question is, how likely are you to refer us to a friend or colleague? And believe it or not, that actually does a better job of predicting repurchase behavior than asking, would you buy, this product from this company again? Which is weird, right? But people don't always know what their own behaviors are, but they have an emotional sense of whether I would recommend you to somebody. I can tell you that right now, because somebody could be sitting right here, my friend, and I'm either going to recommend you or I wouldn't. So they have a much better sense of how they would answer that question. So this simple question often holds the key to just measuring that customer experience. And so it's kind of become the holy grail metric, if you will, for customer experience. It's measured on a 0 to 10 scale. Some companies do it differently, and that doesn't mean that you won't get value out of it. But generally, sort of the authors of this system recommend doing it on a 0 to 10 scale, all kinds of reasons for that. But according to that scale, if someone gives you a 9 or 10, they're a promoter. If they're giving you a 9 or 10, then you can pretty safely assume that if somebody asked them about your company, they would say positive things. Or ideally, they're out there proactively saying positive things and bringing you new customers. That's probably where you're getting a lot of your referrals from, right? Or all your referrals is from your promoters. If they were to answer that question with a 7 or 8, studies have shown that they are a passive. It's not so much that they're neutral, but they could kind of go either way. So some of them, they might be, give you a tempered recommendation, but yeah, they do a little of this and a little of that. They're all right, kind of a thing. I'd do it, but I'd watch out for this, this, and this. They're kind of somewhere in the middle. And then anything 6 or below are considered a detractor. And, like an 8, some people might think, oh, an 8 out of 10, that's a pretty high score. But it really isn't. It really isn't doing you any favors. People that are giving you 8s aren't really doing you any favors. And certainly if it's a 6 or below, they're pretty close to pissed off. And if they're down at the bottom, they clearly are. So that's pretty much how the scale works. And then what you do, when you hear people saying, our NPS score is 34, okay, what they're doing is they're taking the percentage of promoters and subtracting the percentage of detractors, okay? This is the one bit of math in the whole day. Percentage of promoters minus the percentage of detractors. And so, and then the neutrals, they just cancel out, okay? So if you had 60% promoters, right, and let's say 30% detractors and 10% passives, then that's giving you a net promoter score of 30. Did I do that right? A net promoter score of 30. So that's not great, but actually, believe it or not, if you're around 50, that's considered excellent. Because if you think about it, the scale really goes from negative 100 to positive 100. It's not just 0 to 100, right? And there are entire industries that won't be named that have negative scores. So it's very interesting how these move. And what this means to you, it's most relevant relative to your competition. But that's not always the easiest thing to measure. I mean, if you want to go out and solicit and have somebody independently measure you and your competition, that's really the best way to get that score. But the most important thing about using this tool is improving yourself. And the reason why it has so many followers is because people get great feedback from it, and they improve. A couple of examples of folks that are using the Net Promoter Score, and there are many, but Apple is a big user of the Net Promoter Score, and they specifically use it at retail. How many folks here are Apple customers? Wow, more than I would have expected. I should have asked you guys if you had a Mac adapter. That would have been super helpful. I do. Do you? A VGA adapter? Should have asked you. No, it's okay. They're recording off of this, so I had to convert. But the Apple generates a higher gross revenue per square foot than any other retail establishment. And I'm not just talking about like in consumer electronics or technology, any other retail establishment. And they are fixated on this NPS score, absolutely fixated. So they find out who their promoters are, who their detractors are. They call every detractor, or once you've answered that survey, they will call you if you're a detractor and try to figure out what went wrong and how to fix it. And it's interesting because they've even taken that to the next level with kind of their financial analysis and said, well, okay, we're spending a lot of time following up with these detractors. Is it really making a difference? And so they looked over a 2-year basis and said, how much did our detractors buy in the 2 years after they gave us a detractor score, if they weren't followed up with, versus the ones that we connected with afterwards. And there was a huge difference. So it clearly did change the mindset of that customer. And they ended up finding out that for the calls that they were making, which you can imagine a lot of calls there, but they were making like $1,000 per call or per hour, just out there, just getting in touch with people. So there's a real financial benefit here. It's not just soft stuff, and I hope that that's something that the folks that are using NPS will talk about more in your groups is, how are you doing at linking that metric to the financials? Does your financial community buy into NPS and all this customer experience stuff, I mean, there really is a connection there, but you kind of have to work, and your numbers are going to be different than everybody else's, and you have to learn on your own how that's all going to work out for you, okay? Another great example is Enterprise Rent-A-Car. They're huge users of NPS too, and they really credit a ton of their growth to the improvements that they've been able to make over time from using NPS. They actually send thank you notes to some of their detractors. I don't know what percentage, but they actually say, thanks for bringing that to our attention. We made a change on that basis. Had you not told us, we would not have known, or whatever their note says. But then they got all this outpouring of positive goodwill from folks saying, well, I don't even get a thank you note like when I buy something. I certainly have never gotten a thank you note when I complain. So you can imagine just what that's done for them. Another one of the important things about how Enterprise has done it is they've been able to take NPS and bring it down to the branch level, down to the local level. And you can do the same kinds of things with the different functions and departments in your company if they are customer facing. You can also look at NPS on the basis of going back to that journey wheel that we were talking about earlier, that customer experience journey, looking at the different points of interaction that you have with your customers and measuring NPS at those different points will give you a sense of how those interactions are impacting their overall perception of you, okay? So there's a lot of ways to use that tool. And then there's a follow-up question. So really the whole NPS system, as they call it, really is comprised of two questions. One is that how, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely would you be to recommend us to a friend or colleague? And the second is, what are the primary reasons for that score? So whether somebody gave you a positive score or a negative score, it's kind of an open-ended question, and you get lots and lots of feedback. And not to put Brandon on the spot, but Brandon, how valuable is that open-ended feedback?
It is incredibly valuable on both sides. I mean, if, let's say you were just doing awesome, but every single customer was giving you a 10, you don't know what they like about you. You don't know what you're doing well, except that they like you. To have that follow-up with that, I like your installer because it took the time to explain the system. Those type of things let you know not only you're doing good, but absolutely what you're doing bad and how you can follow up and try to turn the tractor back up to it.
Yeah, really, really good feedback. I mean, it's like a gift to have somebody tell you, well, these are the things that are driving these negative scores, right? So you can go tackle them. So the customer insight, so the insight tables, we're getting to what that kind of assignment is. Basically, it's looking at that journey wheel. Y'all have a copy of that journey wheel that I put up earlier with the stars that say, hey, here's some interesting places you might consider feedback. So you can, internalize it as it relates to your company and say, hey, are there some of these places that we're missing that we need to go after for customer feedback? And then there's kind of, again, some questions, some self-reflection that goes along with that and says, are you getting feedback in these different areas from your customers? A little article, very short, about measuring customer loyalty. And again, you can use these tools, if you're like, this is boring, scrap it, at your convenience. And then kind of wrapping with discussion in your groups or pairs, kind of sharing some of the things that you've learned and found. So that would be the insight table. And that's another great, Square One is obviously a good place to start, but that's another great place to start because getting customer insight is the very kind of first thing that you want to do with improving your customer experience. Sorry. All right, we covered that. Whoops. Okay, getting the most out of NPS. So here are just a few tips, if you will, for those folks who are using NPS or who are considering using NPS. One of the things that you want to do is avoid response bias. And John, we were just having that conversation over email. Basically, that can dramatically affect your score because what they've seen over time is that people who are promoters, and this makes sense, but they have a higher response rate. I mean, they like you, so they want to help you out and fill out a survey, right? So you want to try to get your response rate as high as possible to understand whether or not the folks who are responding and giving you your NPS score are actually representative of your whole base of customers. And that's a big one. And even if you don't have response rates up around 65 or 80 or 90 or where the NPS folks would love for you to have them, one of the things that you can do is take one of the times that you're doing a survey, just really push it. Push the follow-up, push the response rate, get it really high, and then see where everyone falls. See how your distribution works with your promoters, your detractors, and your passives, and see how that compares to the distribution amongst the folks who are responding right away and your 15% response rate that you're getting. Does that make sense? So that's one of the things that you can do to kind of push that and test that. The second one is be granular. Kind of use that example with enterprise, but just push that NPS score down to the level that is the most relevant and most actionable. And then validate that the score is linked to customer behaviors. It's a tough one. Your finance folks can help you, and they will love you when they see that that there is that linkage there. But just trying. It's hard because a lot of us are new at NPS, but particularly after you've been using it a couple of years, and you can go back and say, okay, well, what were the renewal rates, right, of customers that were giving us these kinds of scores versus the ones who weren't, Then you can start to get to kind of almost a financial impact, if you will, of the scores. And then you can understand how much it might make sense to invest in some of the unhappy customers to bring them along or make it better. Yes, please. Yes. Yeah. I know, those darn car dealers. I came from the automotive industry. Yeah, that is such a loaded question because the reality is there are a lot of things that you can do to prevent that. A lot of it comes down to how that person is compensated. There are all kinds of ways to bring attention to your employees around, say, an NPS score or whatever kind of research score. One of them is recognition. Oh, there's a happy customer, wrote a letter, put it up, let's ring the bell, give them a cake, make them feel great about the great customer experience that they provided. And then those who maybe get the high scores, showing the recognition. But when you start tying some of those things directly to money very linearly, that tends to be when you get more and more of that behavior going on. And yeah, if you're asking for the score, that's not great. The other thing that you can do is just try to separate the timing, make the timing more random so that they're not necessarily always getting the survey immediately after the experience, because then it doesn't become the, if the salesperson knows that every customer is going to get a survey every time right after, then they're going to kind of push every customer. If it's kind of more randomized or they don't know exactly when it's happening, then they're less motivated to do that. And then a big thing is honestly just, hiring ethical people, emphasizing that this is an important part of our culture and this is part of improving and just rewarding the right behaviors that you see among your employees. I mean, usually you'll know if you have someone like that, especially if there are other employees who feel like that's why someone has an inflated score or what have you. And the last thing I'd say about that is just because you say, are you going to give me a 10? I mean, I don't know about you guys, I find that offensive. That is not going to make me give somebody a 10. I mean, even somebody I would have given a 10, I would absolutely not give a 10 if they said that. That's just like insulting. So I'm not even sure how, that would be an interesting study actually, I'm not even sure how effective it is. So you might even inform your employees that that isn't necessarily, it can't necessarily be assumed to work. So I'll throw those out. And these are perfect questions for your tables because we're all practitioners here that can share our different experiences with how we've dealt with these types of situations. So the performance tables. These are kind of more the NPS users or people that are getting ready to dive into NPS. This has been set up more with a laundry list of discussion questions that if you were to address them all would keep you here until like next Wednesday, I think I computed. But pick those that are maybe most important to you, and then maybe go through those individually, however you want to do it. This is where kind of having a table leader can be a little bit helpful. How do we as a table want to tackle this? And then it's really built around open dialogue and sharing, because I know I've heard from a lot of NPS users that they'd like to communicate and dialogue with other NPS users. Okay. Discussing groups, and then like all the other ones, make a note of those improvements that you can make. And then lastly, focusing not just on the measuring and the insight, but the experience itself and improving that experience. 70% of buying experiences are based on, does anybody know the answer to this question? I'll accept that. Emotion. How the customer feels they are being treated. Not product, not price, but how they feel they're being treated, right? And how many times when people are calling in about a problem, is it the problem that's the big problem, or is it the way that you're not handling the problem well that's the problem, right? Right? That's usually what gets customers upset. They know that things break. They know that things are going to happen. They want to know that you're going to be all over it. Amazon. Jeff Bezos has said, we see our customers as invited guests to a party, and we are the hosts. It's our job every day to make every important aspect of the customer experience a little bit better. And they really deliver on that. How many Amazon customers? Could they be easier to do business with? So awesome. Zappos. How many Zappos customers in here? Great. If you haven't tried it, you should try it. But they literally put the customer ahead of the sale. If you call them for a shoe or whatever it is you need and they are out of stock, their call center representatives are instructed to call 3 other companies, 3 other websites, to check 3 other websites and see if they can find what you want in stock and tell you to go there and buy it. Because they care more about actually being helpful and providing that experience, and they know that their competition isn't going to do that. And they also have 365-day return policy with free shipping both ways. So even if you do buy from that other company, why wouldn't you come back to Zappos where you get that anyhow, right? So they kind of have it figured out. They really took marketing and turned it completely upside down and built a $1 billion company on the basis of word of mouth. That's what they did. National car rental. Well, I don't know why that's falling off the page there. This is just an example that my colleague went through, but she was returning her national car and was running late for a flight. And rather than waiting for the bus or whatever the case was, the gentleman said, listen, I'll just drive you up there. And he just hopped right in the car and just took that rental car and just sped her up to the front of the concourse. And, you know, I don't know if that's the policy or it's not the policy. But, you know, just finding those opportunities to say, wow, what could I do to actually make this customer's day? Really kind of come to the rescue. So those are just some examples kind of on the customer experience front of making that experience better. So the journey table is about using that journey wheel and doing some self-assessment to sort of generate those opportunities. Oh, I think we're really strong on installations. We focus a lot there. Everybody walks in with the booties on their feet. We got that all licked. But over here, not so good, right? Whatever the over here is for you. There's an article included about the value of unexpected actions and how that can have a positive impact in case that stimulates some ideas. And then again, sharing and discussing in your groups or pairs as you see fit. So with that, we will kick off on the table workshops. Given what we've gone through, are there people that want to change tables? I'd imagine there's got to be a few, but. Okay, the culture table, sorry, there is no culture table. Sorry for the false alarm. So sorry. You will get some of that at the square one table, but for a whole bunch of reasons, it just didn't turn out to be the right format for that. So I apologize for that misleading bit of information.
I'd like to be at the NPS table.
You'd like to be at the NPS table. Okay, great. Let's see. Where are the performance tables? Okay, we got one, and we just have. What's your table say? Okay. If you're not happy, move. If we have too many people at one table, we'll change it. We'll change a table over. Let's just figure it out. I want everybody happy. Just kind of looking at the overall assessment, those 5 Ps. It's really up to you. The square one's going to look beyond surveys at the people, the process. It's going to be more general. But if you're interested in that customer insight, then, you know, take your surveys to the next level and then go to the insight.
Where would NPS be?
Okay, there's one. Here's an NPS table. All right. Let's see. We're good? Awesome. Awesome. Everybody happy here? Happy where you are? You guys happy where you are? Good? Okay. Can I have the team leaders up here, the team table leaders, to get information for your group? I did. Oh, did your team leader just leave your table? That's a bummer. Okay, what are you? What table? Your insight. Okay, you're going to have to bear with me because this is so confusing for me. All right, attorney. This should be insight. How many people are at your table? Any idea? Who has insight table?
8.
Just you? All right, insight people. 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How many people at your table? Any idea?
Thank you.
Yeah, perfect.
Square one.
Square one. Okay, how many people at your table? Any idea?
7.
Set. Go ahead, and guys can go ahead and get started. And anybody else square one? Okay.
There's 9.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There you go. Thank you. Journey. How many people at your table?
8.
Journey? Performance. Yes.
I'm Norm.
Norm. Nice to meet you. Oh, awesome.
Steve says he's talking to you.
Yes. He said, I've got Norm here. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a full table. I mean, there's plenty of these anyway. There you go. Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I knew you were going to be the team leader. All right. I would love to get a little bit of sharing going on. First of all, how was that? Was that good? Someone said fun. Or did I just imagine that? Because that would be awesome. Was that good? Did you get something out of that? Did you learn something? You're still talking, so you must be learning something. You're still learning? They're like, stop. We want to keep talking. Okay. I'm going to start putting people on the spot and calling on them to see. This is where the team leaders come in handy, because if we don't get any other volunteers, I'm just going to pin them down. So can anyone share just like something new that they learned, or just thinking about their company in a different way, just a new tidbit of information they can take back with them? Anybody? Oh, come on. Really? All that talking? Nothing? Yes.
It seems like one of the problems with the systems, you tend to focus on the negative, how to keep people from being 0 to 6s, as opposed to how to get people to 9s and 10s. Because we always deal with the last problem or the last issue, as opposed to thinking, how do I get people to really, like in Zappos, how do I get people to be really happy about stuff, as opposed to how do I keep people from being really pissed off about stuff.
Interesting. And this is an exercise designed to try to get at some of those positive things. But the good thing about NPS, as you're talking about, is if you are finding out why those people are 0 to 6, then you may be focusing on the negative there. But so many times you can eliminate that problem, or re-engineer your process, fix it in a way that, that thing no longer is dragging people down. Hopefully, that's what you'll get out of that feedback. And any other thoughts from this table? Any good ideas that come up in terms of cool things?
Proactive rather than reactive, smoke that habit. That kind of thing, it'll get those people, like you said in here, what do you do to get people raised?
What do you do to make people rave?
One person had a suggestion of trying to survey people who do not buy your product.
Yep.
If you don't get the sale, you don't close the sale, they'll be willing to give you feedback of why.
Guys,
Why they chose
great
someone else.
feedback up here. That's a great opportunity for feedback, is people who don't buy your product. So rejectors, especially if you gave them a proposal, they didn't go for it, they went with someone else, that's a great source of feedback. And defectors as well, people that have left. Rejectors and defectors, people that have left you or people that never came to you. Great idea. Other thoughts? What about the NPS table? Somebody must have learned something.
Yeah, there was a really good discussion. One of the things I learned, Brandon is able to break down NPS by individual agent, which is awesome. So that's important to their company. Craig's team acts instantly on the data. It's sent out to like a service tech that did the service visit, his manager, branch manager, all the way to the CEO. And they have cases where they respond so quickly, like customer say you forgot a yard sign, tech turns around, goes back, delivers the yard sign. I thought that was awesome.
That is awesome.
I want to be like Craig when I grow up.
I want to be like Craig. I like that. I like that. That is awesome. That's an awesome system that they've got. Instant feedback to the right people. Yeah? What about this table? Did you guys pick anything up?
Well, everybody we elected to speak left the room, so he's in charge.
When in doubt, the guy to your right.
I guess really one of the things that we touched on is you have one chance to make a first impression. So that first time that you're in front of the customer, that you're able to speak with them, talk with them, make an interaction, get it right the first time. You
Yep.
can make it the second time.
Good advice.
A big part of, I think what we're all doing too is having our employees think of each time they see a customer as that first time that they've seen a customer, even if they've been a customer for a while.
Yep. Great point. Every interaction really matters. That's really a huge point of view of Zappos that we were talking about earlier, and that's why they say, we don't care how long our reps stay on the phone, because our studies show that people only call us on average one time over the course of their relationship. And that's the closest thing they get to a face-to-face interaction, is that person-to-person interaction. They said, we have to make it amazing. That's their whole perspective, is, you don't get that many tries. You have to over-deliver. Yeah, this table. Anything you guys picked up?
So I want to go ahead and use your example, because I think one of the things that we talked about is, are we leveraging other things outside of ourselves? So like in this case, leveraging Angie's List, right? And having your customers rate you also on Angie's List is a free way, or SurveyMonkey, or taking things that are available out there to gather not only insights from the external world, but also the internal world. We had a lot of other great discussions. Anybody wants to add? Go ahead.
Any other thoughts from this table?
The biggest thing is getting the customer's feedback, whether you do it at the beginning or at the end, but making sure you get that feedback and then following up with the feedback. Someone had mentioned they were with the company for 24 years for insurance, and when she left, they never said thank you or sorry or what can we do different, and now how that makes you feel when you know, that they never took any concern for you.
That's a great point. Did you hear that? You know, you want to feel valued as a customer. And I actually know of a security company, this is kind of the opposite of the way most security companies run, but in an effort to have a good customer experience, when somebody wants to call and cancel, they actually make it really easy for them. But the thing is, they almost make it so easy that it's like, well, did you care that I'm leaving, you know? Did you want to ask me why I'm leaving? Like, because if I'm leaving a company and I'm calling, like, I want somebody to ask me what was wrong because I got something to say, you know? But that's a great point. Great point. Make them feel valued. Yes, somebody had a hand up a second ago. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things, you know me, I gotta stand up.
Perfect. Do you want a mic?
Well, I think one of the things that we did at our company is we did a vision mission statement. And so we talked about the fact that really it's a culture thing. And I don't think it's just with the client, starting with the client, it has to start there with leadership. And so after we did a vision mission statement, then we said, okay, now you got to get it out to your sales department. I have a guard department. I have the central station. And they all developed their own in-house little vision mission statement. Well, our sales manager, when it was his turn to bring it to the salespeople, we do this from now on. And we make everyone stand up at the start of our sales meetings, which we do weekly. And ours is Securing the Future, is our vision statement, and then the mission statement. And we say this out loud for everybody. And to start here with our sales process and all that. We save lives and protect assets. We uphold the highest levels of industry standards with integrity, honesty, ongoing employee training, and unmatched customer service. We lead the way in providing peace of mind with innovative life safety and security solutions to our community. And that starts, and then we say, of course, I always say, just to tease everyone, amen. But, you know, it starts the day, it starts that week for what we're supposed to be about and what we do. And then, okay, now comes the customer experience.
Yep.
So
That's right.
I would say it starts at leadership.
It does. It starts at leadership. It starts at culture, absolutely 100%. And it's great to have your teams working on that together. Like I said before, the plug for Roy Spence for the lunch, you know, he'll get into that, you know, just a purpose-based organization. And when you have that common sense of purpose and that alignment, it just keeps everybody going in the right direction. And as everybody here knows, if you don't have happy employees, you're probably not going to be giving great service, right? You're probably not going to be affording a great customer experience. So the next thing that we're going to do is in the middle of your tables, everybody's got 2 pages. There's enough copies for everyone to have their own 2-page copy. And it's creating your own action plan. Basically, the bulk of it is just some thought starters, not comprehensive. You can even tell me they're horrible ideas. That's okay, not offended. You guys undoubtedly came up with much better stuff at your tables. But the most important thing is on the back at the very bottom, because we all know we're infinitely, and I don't know the stat for this, so let's just go with infinitely, more likely to do something if we write it down. So that's what we're going to do. Do a little Tony Robbins here. And write down 3 things that you can do when you get back to the office. It doesn't matter how small. It could be someone that you think would really enjoy, you know, some of this content. It could be someone that you want to bring into the fold and say, you know, I think they could be an ally, and I'd really like to carry on some of these conversations I was having at my table with that person. Or it could be someone in the finance department. They say, I'm going to talk to my finance guy about NPS. It could be anything, something a process that you realize as you went through today, you know, you want to jump on and change when you get back. You name it. Yeah, just pick 3 things. I'm just giving you a laundry list in case you came up with nothing. That's okay. It's okay that you weren't listening, but now the whole room knows it, but it's fine. No, really, I'm not offended.
Bubba wasn't listening.
Is there a way to get some of the questions, I found the questions from our group really engaging,
Okay,
and I'd like to know what some of the other group questions were. that were asked.
absolutely. So what do you not have? First come, first serve, and you made it.
I was in square one.
You were in square one. So I'll give you a whole packet.
Okay.
Here's a journey. Here's the NPS questions. So they're pretty detailed. And here's insight.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Yes. The book.
That's scoring for Fred Reichsfield?
Yeah.
Is that-
Yes, I will hold it up and point to it. I brought it as a prop.
So, this
So you're giving away a book today?
I'm not. I would, but that one's all written in.
My business card.
What did you say?
So, this is the book that where the NPS scoring format comes from.
Yeah, that's
There
great.
might be a
I'll
couple
plug
other
it.
ones,
I'll plug it.
Fred Reichsfield, REIC.
Snap a picture. Snap a picture.
Ah, camera.
Yes, you're welcome. How's everybody? Is everybody done with their action plans and they're just chatting, or do you need another minute? We done? Bennett, done? Are we done? Looks like we're done. Looks like people are mostly done. All right, looks like most people are done with their action plans. Does anyone care to share anything that they are going to hit up the first thing when they get back to the office? Or maybe right when they leave the room? They're gonna, I don't know. Anybody have anything to share? No? Go on a ride with a technician.
Get customer experience firsthand, because I don't ever get to see it.
Kristen's going to go on a ride with a service technician. Love that. Probably not as much as he will, but that's good. Did I say that out loud? Oh, and Mike. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else have some good things that they are going to tackle back at the office? Yes, Norm.
I will be meeting with my colleagues over the month to share this.
Oh, awesome. Fantastic, fantastic. Okay. We lost control of the crowd. Okay, this is your opportunity if you really want to be held accountable to look around at the table and see if there's anybody that looks like they're tough enough to be your accountability buddy. You just wrote down some things you're going to do, and I know you're thinking you're going to walk out of the room and it's not going to matter. But it could. It could matter to someone else besides me and you. So talk amongst yourselves, see if somebody needs an accountability buddy and there's not one at your table, everybody's being a slacker, let me know, I'll match you up with somebody else. Yeah, absolutely. I remember you.
Yeah, I got to run get the booth set up. But this is
Oh, you got it. Well, thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Seminar, like, you know, training really, you know, how to.
Hi. How you doing? Kristen Simmons. Nice to meet you. Are you next?
No.
Or something? Oh no, it's lunch next.
I'm waiting.
Hi.
We're has-beens.
Good. No, you're not. Not in my room.
What's the course?
Customer experience. So it's just all about how to improve yours. So it's kind of a workshop. Been here for 2 hours. These poor folks.
Nobody would buy it.
Yeah, right. Yes. Definitely. Okay, guys. I think just a last few things.
You know, put your phone number on there.
I've been trying to introduce the concept.
Okay. First of all, thank you, everybody. Really great dialogue. Appreciate it. Can you give yourselves a round of applause for being so involved and engaged? Secondly, a couple last, and then you can go back to talking in your groups because we actually have 10 minutes left, so we're a little bit ahead. But a few things. One, if you want some of the materials from another table that you're interested in. I do have some extra copies. You can come let me know. There's some of them I have more than others. If you want to leave me a business card, I'm happy to send you slides or worksheet materials or anything that you would like. That's fine. And all right, one more minute, everybody. Just 1 minute. And lastly, if you're interested in Net Promoter, a few people were interested in the book. It's called The Ultimate Question 2.0. Is the latest book. Reicheld and Markey. And so you can, find it on Amazon, find it anywhere if you are interested in that. And I think, did you guys have surveys on your tables when you came in? Is that? At registration. Well, this is funny because I used to give out one of those, and then ESX stole it from me. That's actually my exact survey that I used to use. But I had one for you guys. So what I'd like to do is, if you have positive things to say about this session, please fill out the ESX survey. And if you have negative comments, please fill out mine. I'm totally kidding. Just fill out the ESX one. It's all fine. And that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you.